Hey everybody, I'm Carlos,
Hey, and I'm Tony.
and we are not in Car and Driver's video cave because Tony is a fancy guy who lives in a fancy town called Los Angeles, and I can say that because I used to live there, now I live in Michigan. So we're doing this over Zoom.
Yeah, we're in our homes.
And what we're going to do here is beyond admire the fact that we're both wearing matching Patagonia sweaters, because, again, we're very fancy people. We're going to talk about Tony's experience being one of the drivers at Lightning Lap this year and all the vehicles you drove, but also all the previous times you've driven at Lightning Lap. How many laps around VIR do you think you have at this point?
We checked, and actual timed laps, I have 1,689. But we estimate, you don't always have the equipment. You're not always recording laps. So it's probably closer to 2,000 is the real number. And so, 8,400 miles of lapping, or 8,200 miles of lapping.
Absolutely the most out of anybody on the team, right?
I think I edge out Casey just barely. But
And
Casey and I have both. Sorry, go ahead.
How many of those do you think are actually like fast?
I would guess around a quarter of them. Or what do you mean? Are you making fun of my speed?
Making fun of your driving ability.
All right, yeah, that's fine. I'll take it.
Okay. Well, we're going to get started going from all the vehicles you drove from the slowest to fastest. And let's get started. So we're starting with the RS Q8. Now, you drove 2 SUVs this year, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I had to turn the audio down on the RS Q8 because it's so ridiculously loud. Yeah, the RS Q8's a beast. It's also the heaviest vehicle we've ever tested here at VIR. It's a very
5,500 pounds, right?
Yeah, it's very easy to drive quickly. Basically drives like, a very powerful front-wheel drive car, but then you have the all-wheel drive to power out of the corners. So there's a lot of understeer that you're battling, but still, when the tires were fresh, I think it pulled nearly a G, if not a G, in this first corner here.
That's really good for a 5,500 pound SUV that has also 600 pounds and like Connie Sport Contact 6, which are sticky, but not like the Cup 2 or Cup 2Rs that we saw in other cars this year.
Yeah, that's right, Carlos. They're terrific tires when they were fresh and when they're not overheated, but with such a heavy vehicle, they get overheated pretty quickly, especially if you're really, really pushing hard. So the key to a fast lap in it is some of it's preservation of the tires, because by the end of the lap, you're just finding all this understeer, and the front end is just sliding, and there's just not enough grip. So if you maintain the tires throughout the lap, I found that you had a better success rate of a fast lap.
Going into the S's is always hairy. Did you do anything different with the RS Q8?
No, not really. I mean, it's not going in as fast as the sports cars, obviously. It's still going in pretty fast. But, and then one of the nice things about the SUVs is like they completely sop up the curbing. You have all this wheel travel, you have all this suspension travel. Like, it's just not an issue to hit the curbs hard.
That's got to be comforting. There were some cars I remember driving way back in the day where like the express rule was do not touch the curbing whatsoever. GT500, and these days these things are just clobbering them. Hell, even the modern GT500 can clobber them right now.
Yeah, and here it is on the back straight. It has amazing brakes. It has the same brakes as the Cayenne and the Urus, as the Lamborghini Urus. I mean, these are all platform-made vehicles. But the brake pedal feel, when they really got hot, sort of started creeping a little bit closer to the floor than I like. But the braking ability is always there. You just have to really push for it.
It was kind of a funny comparison, or an interesting comparison between the Cayenne and the Urus, because they're all very similar mechanically underneath, but very different experiences, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the spec sheet, the RS Q8 has the least power of those three, but it's not like a huge difference. I think it's around 590 horsepower for the RS Q8, or 591. I can't recall the exact number.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, I mean, it's not a huge difference from the Cayenne and the Urus, but it's enough to make a difference on the straight to some degree. This car's a little heavier, and I think, the final tuning is probably just a little bit softer because, the Audi's going to live its life on a street. The other two have a small chance of reaching a racetrack, but I think a lot of the tuning for the other two were done at racetracks.
The breadth of like fast SUVs here really shows how crazy the world is right now, because 5 years ago, this would have been an extreme high-performance SUV. Now it's like one of the milder performance SUVs. The rest are like track-oriented SUVs, which is nuts.
Right. Yeah, this would still be a very livable thing on the road. And the weird thing about them is they sit high, so you sit really high on this thing.
Were you the one who came up with RS7 at standing desk height?
Yeah, and that's totally what it is. It's just you're standing up instead of sitting down in it.
So that's the end of that lap. How did you feel about that?
I kind of struggled to get a great lap with this thing. I really wanted to get it under 3 minutes, and I just never did. And I was kind of upset with myself, but I looked at some of the other times that it compares with, and it was plenty quick.
So as we start talking about the BMW X5 M Competition, we have to chat about BMWs. We talked about this in another Lightning Lap videos where we only had one set of tires for each BMW, and you got saddled with driving most of the BMWs here.
Yeah, I drove 3 BMWs. I mean, sometimes experience comes to your advantage, sometimes it comes to your disadvantage, but I got tossed in the BMWs because we knew that we were going to be able to lap these the least because we only had the one set of tires. We couldn't switch tires for day 3, just when we usually set our fastest times. So really, I didn't have a lot of laps in any of the BMWs. Probably could have gone a little quicker just as you learn the car, but you know, they were pretty straightforward. And the X5, after driving the RS Q8, the X5 really feels like a bit sportier. It doesn't feel quite as much like a front-wheel drive car. It doesn't understeer as much. You know, there's more front-end grip. It sort of rotates under power. Fantastic brakes. Doesn't have carbon ceramics or anything, but the brakes are just fantastic. At least I don't remember it having carbon ceramics. I believe it had iron rotors. And again, you can just pound over the curbing.
5,300 pounds, 617 horsepower, so less weight, more power, always a good combination. Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. This thing seemed to hustle pretty well.
Yeah. And it's very much like, I mean, yeah, it's also like, you know, an RS Q8 to an Audi sedan is very similar to the X5 to a BMW sedan. It's just, you're just sitting a bit higher. You've got more wheel travel. You're thrown around a bit more because you're sitting higher, which is sort of, you got to fight that. But really super controllable, really felt like a rear-wheel drive biased setup in the all-wheel drive system, which means not a lot of understeer, and it was just fantastic. It was really good.
That's a nice thing with the BMW like performance all-wheel drive systems is they do the best of both, right? Where you have the neutrality, you have that oversteer sensation, and then you have traction digging out of corners, which is really nice. David Beard was saying that the X4M felt like it was always picking up tires, but you didn't report that in the X5M, right?
I didn't sense that much in the X5. I felt it was a bit more supple. Maybe that's because its mission is, you know, it's still going to be used as a luxury car on the road.
Yeah.
But also, one of the things I didn't mention about the RS Q8 that was fantastic in both the RS Q8 and the X5 is the gearbox. If you're in the right mode, if you're in the sportiest mode, it's doing downshifts under braking. You don't have to worry about downshifts. It's doing upshifts at red line. It won't upshift short of the red line. It's not going to start doing that. And that sort of just alleviates you. It's one less thing to worry about if the transmission is doing exactly what you would want it to do if it was a manual or if you were even overriding it. And then you don't have to worry about upshifts and timing the upshift and ruining a lap by running into the rev limiter.
For when you're driving your 5,300 pound BMW X5M around a racetrack, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's good. It's a good trait for the car to have.
You know, we get a lot of complaints that these things aren't relatable, but then we lap a relatable car, semi-relatable, obviously. And, you know, this is why we do it.
Well, and also, I imagine that semi-relatable car would not be doing a 3-minute lap around VIR.
No, this is ridiculously quick.
This is
a really quick lap. And look, I mean, if you take a look in the corner, you can see how nicely how much lateral support you get in the seats. You get shoulder support, and then you get a lot of support around your torso.
So, how much time do you think we left on the table without having the extra set of spare tires?
Oh, I don't know. What did this end up running?
A 3 minute and 0.5.
Oh, yeah, I think it would have gotten under 3 minutes for sure. I think I would have picked up another second and a half, maybe with a bit more lapping. I think I only drove this in anger 3 or 4 laps.
And a note to BMW for next year, man. More tires.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get you the sub 3 minute time. Come on. Okay, the BMW M3 Competition xDrive. It's got all the words in its title.
Yeah, absolutely. This thing was a hoot. I driven the rear drive manual M3 on track, not at VIR, but at a different track. And so I was expecting that, and that car didn't quite feel as connected as the all-wheel drive automatic version. This car really felt fully formed in the way it corners, in the way it turns in the way it leaves corners. The other one sort of felt like they built it and they hadn't quite gotten the special sauce right in the final tuning. This one felt fantastic. Tons of front end grip in turn one. Absolute screamer of an engine, just tons and tons of power. And the steering isn't as good as what you'd find in, say, a Cadillac or like a Porsche sports car, but it's reliable, it's direct, it's quick, and it works. It's just you don't get a lot of communication. But it sops up the curbs, as you can see, and it just hauls in. I mean, it hauls on the way up to the climbing S's, which are coming up.
Yeah, the engine in this thing is insane. I mean, you experience it with the X4 M. You experience it with this vehicle. We have a long-term M3 that has a lower power version, but this engine just rips. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. The CT4 V Blackwing was very similar in a lot of places, but this car just ate it up on the straightaways. That's where most of its advantage came.
Yeah, it's down 20-30 horsepower. The Cadillac is, and it's got half the number of drive wheels, right? So,
right, exactly. And the BMW engines I don't know. BMW has a different measurement for horses apparently than everybody else.
They count every other one.
Yeah, exactly. They're big German Clydesdales or something. Because I mean, the power is just astonishing. I mean,
yeah.
And then the brakes are fantastic too. And again, this is a car that I didn't lap that many times. I probably only lapped it 3 times, maybe in anger, maybe 4 times in anger. And it still managed to turn a spectacular time and just managed to eclipse the CT4V Blackwing.
Yeah, and if I recall right, by talking to Casey, looking at the data, like this basically hung with the CT4V in the most corners, and then it just got its power down sooner, and because it has more power, it's just pulling away on the straights, and that'd be so frustrating on a track day, wouldn't it?
That's absolutely right, and you just don't have to be as patient in this car versus the Cadillac. And also, you'll notice the seats are they're like racing seats, basically. I mean, they're not, but they are bolstered like racing seats, so you're just held in, and it just makes your life that much easier, and it makes your life that much better. The Cadillac engineers are actually peeking into the M3 and taking a look at the seats. It's one of the BMW seats that has the hard knob, like that separates your legs.
The crotch cradle.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got huge leg support. You're just really held in place, and when you have to not brace yourself and hold yourself, it's just one less thing to worry about while you're lapping.
And across the finish line, that was for only doing a handful of laps due to the tire limitation. That's a pretty incredible performance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty easily, I think, the quickest of the M3s we've ever tested.
Handily.
Yeah. There might have been an M3, I think it was there was a special edition one from a few years ago that was lightweight that I think ran a 51 or a 52.
And here we go with the 2022 BMW M5 CS. Do you know what CS stands for?
I don't. Do you?
I imagine it's something German for less weight, more power.
I know in the Ferrari world it'd be like Challenge Stradale.
Horrifically long German word that means less.
Yeah, exactly. This thing was kind of a shocker for me. I'd driven M5s here before, not for lap times, just out of curiosity. We had different drivers in the M5s in years past, and this thing is really a different animal than those. It feels lighter. It's got better body control, and most importantly, it comes with some pretty special tires.
Yeah, the Pirelli P0 Corsa PZC4, which there's no way I could have remembered. I'm looking at the notes in front of me right now.
Yeah, and like in a BMW spec too. So it's a tire designed around this car, and man, they work. I mean, this car is just so much better and easier to drive than the other ones we've had. We've had a regular M5, and then we had an M5 Competition, and those each keep stepping up the power.
Yeah.
And this one has the most of those. I think it's is it
627 horsepower.
627, yeah.
125 pounds lighter than the regular M5, which is substantial.
Yeah, and you know, when I drove this on the street, I tested one of these, and it's not much louder. A lot of it came out of sound deadening, and it's really, I mean, it's still a pretty quiet car, a very livable car. I mean, if I'm picking an M5, I mean, this is really, it's not an inexpensive car, but if I were to pick an M5, I would definitely go for this one. I mean, it's really something special.
150 grand as equipped, by the way, but it is the one to get of the M5s. I mean, I would make that choice just on how this thing looks. I know we're talking about driving a car fast right now, but this one as equipped with that green paint looks fantastic.
Oh, again, yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned it in the M3 video. The Cadillac guys were walking around not only the M3, but also the M5 and just sort of eyeing it, taking a look at it, and yeah, sort of marveling at it. Even though the CT5 Blackwing walked away from this thing, even though this turned a very quick lap.
These were natural competitors. Do you think that with more tires that this could have been closer to the CT5V Blackwing?
In terms of width? Or
no, in terms of
like if it went to like a
lap
cup?
times. Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I mean, tires are probably the single easiest thing to change on a car to make it go quicker around a track. But you know, the Cadillac wasn't on a track tire like this BMW. The Cadillac was on Pilot Sport 4S's, so it's not like it didn't have a tire advantage for sure. The Cadillac does it through power and handling.
Do you think if you had more spare tires that you would have been able to get closer to the CT5V?
Yes, maybe if I had removed the inflation kit, it would have saved another 4 pounds, and I could have lopped off another 100th of a second.
and hit the bathroom before you go out, right?
Yeah, exactly. But again, this car only came on the tires it came on, so again, not a lot of laps in this thing. I think I only lapped it 3 or 4 times for times.
Really a testament to your ability to get the time out of this car, because that's really strong result.
That's some of it. That's some of it, but it really was the car. I mean, the car is really easy to jump into and drive quickly. It's just like a really trusty thing. All-wheel drive system works brilliantly. Everything in it works brilliantly. The transmission works well. The engine pulls hard. No hiccups. Didn't do anything stupid. Brakes are great. And I think it's got the same seats or a version of the seats that are in the M3 too, which make life very easy.
And you're right about like being easy to drive is such a vital trait for a car to have. I didn't see like any gnarly oversteer or any like big corrections or stuff in this video. And you do see some of that, some of the other hot laps, and you know, there you can see where the people are really working, but it doesn't look like it in this M5.
Well, I mean, I didn't have tires to abuse,
That's true
so
too.
I had to sort of make sure that I had a nice, good, clean lap, and maybe I left some time on the table versus lapping it several more times, but yeah, I needed to get a good lap, and I needed to get a clean lap, and you know, there's some time on the table for sure. But
So what are you hoping for next lightning lap?
what do you mean?
What's the cars, the times, the weather? I mean, tell me your dream list.
Well, I mean, we were lucky this year that we went again in the fall. We used to go in the spring when it was, you know, much hotter, and we lucked out with weather this year. We had 3 good days of lapping, so we were able to get everything done that we needed to get done. You know, I've lapped stuff under 40 seconds before. I did the ZR1 a few years ago, and I sort of feel like I've touched that burner on the stove, and it's hot. And KC seems to enjoy doing those really, really fast ones and stressful ones. And you know, I enjoy them too. I mean, I went out in the Blackwing. I went out in the AMG Black, and I had a great time in that, but I didn't lap it, so the pressure was off. And I went out in the GT3 also, and ran like a low 240 in it. And I didn't drive it for time, but there's a lot of pressure to you know, we feel a lot of pressure. At least I felt a lot of pressure to lap those things as quickly as possible. So it makes lightning lap a lot more stressful. And you know, there's enough time that we can play around in each other's cars and sort of check each other's times, which is something we do to make sure that we're in the ballpark. And I'm happy to do that and not set it for time.
For sure. And, you know, next year, I mean, the cars are just going to keep getting faster. So the stress is just going to keep going up, right? But hey, that's why we're happy to be doing this. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, let us know in the comments below and give us a like and comment. I think I already told you to comment, but hey, do it again because you don't want to like twice because that means you would have unliked.
Yeah,
we'll see you guys next time.
I went to clapping camp for 3 summers.
You did? You guys
No,
clap?
there's no such thing as clapping camp, Carlos.
You had my hopes up.